Hello guys and gals, and welcome to yet another of those rare unscripted videos that we do on the occasion, where we're going to discuss a specific video game opinion in more depth than we would usually do on one of our regular videos, which is why we don't do them too often, because I don't really have the resources to turn into a daily video game news channel. This video I actually wanted to make quite a long time ago because, believe it or not, before we even get into it, I actually had the time to do recordings and finish all of the console Kingdom Hearts games. I already done the whole series, so I already know everything that's going on. Obviously, this is going to be a prelude to the 6 to 8 months that it's going to take in order to do the in-depth series on every individual game in our series as standard. Because that's just what we do here. We want to get in-depth and possibly do some commentary on the bosses that did something a bit more interesting than the normal pack of games. So, if Square Enix decides to put plot-important things into their mobile or Facebook exclusive games, then I guess we're just not going to know what happens in whatever game tends to hook onto that narrative left behind. We're just not going to see that, so I guess we're just going to be doing the best we can as we do. So, why did I actually decide to do this video? Because I haven't actually done this for anything else, even though we've covered probably 8 franchises at this point on the channel. And the reason was actually kinda simple, because Kingdom Hearts is such a peculiar series that, by design, is so narratively heavy and interconnected with everything in every part of the franchise, that while we are still going to do the individual reviews in the individual series, in order to get the best possible picture of what Kingdom Hearts is, and in order to relay that to other people, I felt that doing an overall opinion on the entire series was the only way to get the true picture on the channel of what I thought about Kingdom Hearts. And my opinion on Kingdom Hearts is actually a little bit unique, because I didn't come into the franchise with a totally blind mindset. A lot of the games I still came in blind because, you know, spin-offs and things like that, they're just inherently harder to get into rather than just the mainline series. Before this, I actually finished Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2. I did a story completion because obviously I'm not a completionist, as you can see by the various other videos where I laugh at cheap completionist fodder as being a really stupid way to try and extend your gameplay time for your shitty short games. But Kingdom Hearts, it definitely has a lot of content to back that up, and in normal Square Enix fashion, they will put very diamond hard, horribly over-the-top final challenges as bonus content for the people. And sometimes that dribbles down into the final bosses. We'll get into that when we get into that. But I actually already played these games, so I actually had an idea what Kingdom Hearts was trying to do, and obviously what Kingdom Hearts tries to do is obviously very simple. It's a hack and slash through very iconic recreations of Disney movies. It's not something that's hard to comprehend, but Kingdom Hearts by design, and it's part of its appeal, is that it has such a stupidly over-convoluted plot progression and constant twists and turns that people show up to Kingdom Hearts not only because it always has great hack and slash combat, but just to see what the crazy shit they're gonna throw at the wall next. It really is a carnival sideshow factor that gets rolled into possibly the marketing and the overall feel of every game. So when I came into this, I had a very piecemeal relationship with Kingdom Hearts because I'd only played the mainline games that existed at that time on the PS2. Kinda surprised that Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't come out on the PS3, but that's Square Enix for ya. But the thing that changed the most about the opinion, and we know these videos that come out, we know these opinions because Kingdom Hearts is Kingdom Hearts, and Kingdom Hearts has that general opinion outside of the people that actually get like really in depth with it. that it is stupidly convoluted and it makes absolutely no sense, because Square Enix will spend so much time just throwing random crap at the wall and just these hanging plot threads all over the place that it can't make any sense, because they're not picking up the pieces, they're not doing things with their arcs, so how the heck does it connect to anything, and how do the pieces move, and how does this machinery even continue to work, sort of thing. It's such a mystifying, baffling attempt to write a story that it's both amazing and completely impenetrable for so many people. And that's why you get videos that nitpick the shit out of that, because it's complete nonsense, as quoted by so many people on the internet. But the weird thing was that after going through the entire trip, and yes, it was a complete mind-altering experience going through Kingdom Hearts in this way, Kingdom Hearts actually makes sense. And after playing Kingdom Hearts 2, I am surprised that I was able to say that, because yes, it's all interconnected, but there is a through line to it. There is actually a logic behind what happens in Kingdom Hearts. And not only is there an actual logic to it all that you can follow in some form, it actually gets pretty moving and emotional if you do have that investment in the series. And again, I was completely freaking surprised that that was ever going to be the case, because after Kingdom Hearts 2, I was like, what the hell is anybody talking about? What the hell is going on? But that's the thing. And the big reason why Kingdom Hearts has this reputation is that in order to get the full experience out of Kingdom Hearts, you do have to go through every single thing that Kingdom Hearts does. You have to go into the spin-offs, you have to pick up the handheld games. Otherwise, yeah, you are going to be completely lost, because the spin-off games are not optional. They're not just these crazy little spin-off experiments that Square Enix puts out, and it can just exist as its own thing. And yes, most of these games can exist as their own thing, but it gets so much more satisfying to actually see the story and actually experience the narrative if you have the connections to the other games, because it's a very deliberate chapter-based plot set across multiple games. You have to play all the games, which is why I was worried at the top of this video about those mobile and Facebook games, because they did do that. In Kingdom Hearts 3, the ending tied into plot points from a mobile game that they put out for Kingdom Hearts, or I think it was like the back cover game or something. That could have been it. Like something that's, even by its own standards, is comparatively obscure to something like 358 over 2 days. So yes, it was completely surprising that not only does the series make sense, but it's actually satisfying and super cool to see how some of these plot points turn out and some of these character arcs actually move around. I guess, we haven't really gotten into spoilers at this point, but I'll put a spoiler alert here for the people, because I kind of want to show what I'm talking about, but I can only do that if I give the spoiler, because, I mean, how the heck do you explain something like this without doing spoilers? It's just impossible. And it will tie into the next point on the list that I wanted to discuss. After I played 358 over 2 days, I had a weird experience with that game, because 358 over 2 days is such a weird title for those who have played it, because at its core, it should have been a bad game. It should have been a boring game to start, because the combat is very simplistic. It cuts out a lot of features because it's on the Nintendo DS. The visuals aren't as great, the maps are terrible, the story is actually kind of boring. Well, not the story, but the missions are boring. And to be honest, 358 over 2 days, and I'm just gonna start calling it Calendar, because I hate saying that stupid number over and over again from here on out. Calendar could more accurately be described as a visual novel combined with a hack and slash game. It is such a bizarre game, because the best way I could describe Calendar to people is that it's the Kingdom Hearts version of a work simulator. Calendar, focuses on Roxas as he first gets created and brought into Organization 13. And then the entire game is just him doing a bunch of jobs to defeat Heartless and serve the organization's needs. And that's really the whole game as a tagline. Like, that's all it does. But as you get through the game and start actually getting into the story and getting into the diary entries that Roxas writes, that's when it starts kind of turning into a visual novel, because it starts adding in characters, it starts adding in more interactions as the behind the scenes of what the organization was doing around Chain of Memories starts coming into play because of just how it was there in the timeline. Like, Roxas came into existence around before Chain of Memories actually happened because of what happened with Sora and all that other stuff in Kingdom Hearts that led to his creation in the first place. But what I was getting around to was that they introduce more interactions with the nobodies in Organization 13, and most notably would be people like Sykes, Luxord, and especially Axel and Xion. Xion was actually created specifically for Calendar because of the events that are around her. I'm not going to spoil what that actually was because that's more important, and I can easily skip that in order to kind of get to the point. But Roxas starts actually hanging out after work with Axel and Xion, actually starts developing a relationship with these characters, and it gets really interesting because if you know Kingdom Hearts, then you know at that point, the nobodies have no emotions, so it's weird seeing them actually, developing a friendship around what they were doing. And then, they start relying on each other, become dependent, and start fighting for each other. Things start getting out of hand, and the organization starts screwing with Roxas and Xion specifically because of what they need to do in the plot, and it's not working too well because they're rebelling against what their programming was supposed to be. I guess programming probably wasn't the right word, just what their expectations were supposed to be. And then Roxas starts rebelling against the organization at the end. He starts going after his old allies because he's felt betrayed, and it becomes incredibly interesting as a story because of that visual novel element. Because Roxas and Xion and Axel, at that point in the canon, like, this was completely unprecedented. Like, the friendship budding and being despised because the other nobodies had no emotional attachment to anything, because that's what they were. That's what they were inherently. They were emotionless creatures. So they're despised, at least somewhat. Like, they're not actively, excluded, but people do think it's really weird that that's happening. And I suppose you could read in there's a little bit of jealousy there. And again, the dependence on Roxas, Xion, and Axel when they're being pulled apart by what their jobs are in the organization, because Axel is kind of the executioner of the organization and gets sent out on dangerous missions. Roxas is being kept in the dark and no one knows what the hell Xion is doing or what her point in organization is. So again, that's why it gets really interesting, because these characters actually have arcs. And not only does that become an internally interesting arc, because you get to see these characters change so much over time from what they started as and what they were inherently supposed to be as nobodies, and what happens at the end of the game and where they all end up. But that immediately ties into stuff like Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3, where Roxas ends up, getting the amnesia thing, going to Twilight Town, and having to live his life not knowing what the hell happened to him through the events of Calendar. And then Xion starts showing up later down the line in Kingdom Hearts 3 because of the whole needing to time travel people back in time in order to form new Organization 13, but I don't know why the hell Xehanort thought bringing Xion back as a member was a good idea, because that instantly backfired in the most stupid way possible that I just can't wrap my mind around why the hell that happened. But it's those events and those character arcs that you really need coming into games like Kingdom Hearts 2 or Kingdom Hearts 3, because you have investment in characters that don't just have the fucking, black and white, I'm just the good guy backstory. Like, they come from horrible circumstances, they get manipulated, they grow to depend on people that they really can't, because they're the only people there in order to, have somewhere to be. like somewhere to actually call home, and it's just so many levels of just narrative goodness, I guess, and narrative satisfaction that, you know, these characters, just from their backstories and, you know, how the organization tries to pull them apart and things like that. And it only, like, after I finished Kingdom Hearts 2 the first time, I really liked Roxas, but that addition with what happened in Calendar just made him so much more of a good character, because he has such a tragic backstory, and, you know, he's not able to have his own way and live his own life just because he's a nobody. And it's not easy getting a nobody to be on the same plane as their own selves. So he has to reside in Sora and just wait all this time to get out and actually be his own person. And again, it just makes them such a better character. And on the flip side of that, the second best case study is Riku. Because Riku is the Kingdom Hearts version of basically Anakin Skywalker. He has the same backstory, essentially, because in Kingdom Hearts, he gets drawn to the dark side with all of its power and the desire to leave Destiny Islands because he's bored there. He wants to see the world, but he gets drawn into the Ansem way of thinking. He gets brainwashed to what he is, and eventually absorbed into his power so that he can be manipulated in order for Ansem's plan to eventually come to fruition, which Sora completely blows apart at the end of Kingdom Hearts. But it doesn't end there. In Chain of Memories in the Riku section, and in Calendar, because Riku does make a showing, and then later on in Kingdom Hearts 2, you see the progression as Riku has to come to terms with the fact that he's made the decision to delve deeper into the Ansem darkness in order to get more power, in order to help out his friends, in a way where he can defeat the people who are antagonizing him and put his friends in a safer spot, so that the people antagonizing him don't end up going after Sora and Kairi. So he delves deeper into that well where he knows that he doesn't have that chance of getting out if he goes in deeper. He's gonna get totally enraptured and totally enchained in Ansem's influence, because it's still there, because it hasn't left, because he keeps indulging in it, because he keeps going to Ansem and asking for more power to protect the people that he knows. And then just going further down the line, when he keeps asking for more power, he becomes more Ansem-like in a visual term. His complete body changes. He becomes more like Ansem. He develops the eyes. He eventually turns into a carbon copy of Ansem, which is why in Kingdom Hearts 2 I was so infinitely confused about the Riku thing, because at the point in Kingdom Hearts 2 is when it reaches a maximum level problem. He's asked Ansem for so much power of darkness that he's literally become a carbon copy of Ansem. He's become himself, at least in looks, because he's literally Ansem at that point. Back then, I mean, he just had the yellow eyes. That's the only thing that transferred over from Ansem to what he was. And again, him having to later down the line fight with the fact that Ansem is still there and the darkness is still trying to seduce him back into the plane of darkness in order to become a bad person and a bad character, an evil character, with the seduction of more power. It's so easy. All he has to do is submit to Ansem. And Ansem has a direct connection to him, so it's very easy for him to find him. It just makes such a great backstory and ultimately a great character, because Riku ultimately had the fortitude to tell the darkness to screw off. Okay, he didn't need the darkness, he didn't need to go the dark side, because he overcame the darkness and through that gained the strength to eventually gain the power that he ended up originally looking for in the first place. Which again is just so interesting, and this happens over multiple games. Like I said, this started in Chain of Memories and it didn't really conclude until, I guess, Dream Drop Distance, which was like 4 games down the line. Ultimately, the reason why Riku completely disconnected with his friends was completely stupid, because his friends were Sora and Kairi. I mean, he didn't have to do that complete disappearance act in order to protect his friends from the person that he looks like, because Riku wasn't going to attack anybody. I mean, he delved deeper into the darkness, but he was always himself. He wasn't brainwashed like Terra Xehanort in order to completely harm everybody around him. He was completely fine, so I always thought that was kind of dumb for him to do that. But again, this all just encapsulates how much better Kingdom Hearts is when you play it in a series. When you actually get to experience these events as they unfold and see them come back and be referenced later down the line in other games, especially in things like the Birth by Sleep 3 Masters and Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, this is the beginning game in the franchise and the ending game in the franchise as it currently stands. And yeah, they have connections between the front and the back, literally. And you really should play all the games in order to get that investment in it and ultimately be moved when these characters actually resolve all the crap that they have to deal with and become better people in the long run. Especially, you know, people like Terra Xehanort, who are put into a bad situation for the entire franchise. And I guess you could say that about the 3 Masters entirely, because they keep getting screwed over. Mostly because Birth by Sleep is a prequel, so, you know, everything has to fuck up like in the prequel trilogy. There had to be a fuck up, so they just wrote in a fuck up, and everybody's screwed. So there you go. For all of the shit that it's given, and it's definitely given a lot of, you know, really deserved shit, because on top of, you know, having really good interconnected stuff, they really do just leave things hanging and throw shit at the wall that they don't pick up, and it just comes off as complete gibberish. Like, things in the plot aren't really consistent. Like, you know, they kind of talk about shadows as being like literal shadows who have manifested into bad people, but then they also talk about shadows in the same way as being figurative, and things like that, like the light of people, and the Keyblades, and, you know, the old masters, and how do you gain power, how do you train, it's like, and, you know, things like what characters are, like the Heartless, and people who don't have hearts, and it's like, you can't be flipping around between being completely deliberate in what you're talking about and then being, like, figurative, because it ends up making gibberish and making inconsistent bullcrap just spew out of your mouth. And then there's, like, just the moralizing crap that Sora is constantly going on about, like the power of friendship and how the light's always going to win because it's the light, and the good is always going to triumph because it's good, and that's what happens, and it's just, oh, friendship can overcome anything, and if you're a bad person, then you should stop being a bad person, and oh my god, Sora is just such an annoying person because he is the prime example of a fucking white-black moral character who's just good for the reason of being good, and he's the Destiny child, so he's predestined to be the best at everything even though he's a colossal moron. So yay, we get to talk about Sora, because Sora is a fucking idiot. Like, over this series, I mean, I never liked Sora to begin with, but Jesus Christ, like, going down and down and down the line of these games, Sora has never grown up or matured as a person, and completely talks like he's still a 12-year-old. Like, the person who's writing Sora has never changed his mannerisms or the way that he talks or the way that he thinks, even though he's been through all of these, like, global, galactic-sized, life or death conflicts between the most evil people on the planet, and it hasn't affected him in the fucking slightest. Like, the person writing Sora has never changed how he's written, and he's contrasted against people like Riku and Roxas, who I just went on about for like 10 minutes earlier, who have interesting and flawed backstories because they aren't, you know, cut from the predestined cloth of just being the best at everything. Like, they had to overcome shit in order to get where they are as good people. But Sora, he's just handed everything. He's handed everything by destiny. He wins all his conflicts just because the universe wants him to win. He's just guided along you know, hand-holded by the hands and the powers of the universe to success and victory every single time. And it's a horrible character as a result. Because Sora doesn't even have a freaking backstory. Like, he just wants to save all his friends and go back to how everything used to be, even though it's been like 3 years since they left the Destiny Islands originally. I don't really know how long of time it's been gone on, as the series has had such temporal lapses, especially since they started introducing literal time travel to everything. But, I mean, Sora's lowest moment was definitely Kingdom Hearts 3, because back in the day, even though Sora was an idiot and didn't know anything about what he was doing, at least he seemed like he could do some things, like drive the little gummy ship to where he needed to go. He knew where to go in order to solve his problems, and he knew, like, the next thing that he had to do to defeat X, Y, or Z when he needed to defeat them, like, you know, at most of the games before Kingdom Hearts 2. He was kinda able to do what the world required him to do, but Kingdom Hearts 3 is so bad with this, because throughout the entire game of Kingdom Hearts 3, it is very clear that Square Enix wanted to build the main chunk of the game around the Disney worlds and just going to the Disney worlds, which is a good idea in theory, because you want to show off the levels, which is the main reason why people have stuck with the franchise, in order to see a lot of Disney cool stuff. You know, it's really cool stuff because, you know, it's nostalgic, but we get to experience the films in a different way. And yes, they are, you know, really cut down from the films because this is a hack and slash stage. I mean, we can't stay in a film for 2 hours. I suppose in a rare occasion we can, but we can't stay there. So, you know, it's just kind of fun to beat up the villains in a video game and just be able to help out some of our favorite characters as they go through their problems and get to experience the films in, you know, I guess a video game quest sort of way, which is really fun. Especially, you know, in your favorite movies. I mean, some of the more modern stuff doesn't have that nostalgic tinges to it because we didn't grow up with it, but they're still pretty good films. At least Kingdom Hearts 3 picked some really good modern stuff that Kingdom Hearts didn't already use. But anyway, getting back to Sora. And the main reason why this philosophy ended up being a problem with Sora is that Sora literally has no idea what he's doing. At the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 3, he's tasked with gaining the power of waking, which Riku ended up being acquired because he's great at everything, and Dream Drop Distance because he was able to actually acquire that power because he knew what the hell he needed to do, and he ended up doing it. Like, he acquired it through bravery and overcoming boss monsters. He beat the final boss and was, you know, able to prove himself as a Keyblade Master, but Sora wasn't able to do that. But Yen Sid told him to go get that power, but the problem is Yen Sid didn't tell him where to go, and Sora doesn't know where to go either. So what he basically does is that he puts his entire trust into basically the heart of the cards and just blatantly asks the universe to lead him to where he needs to go. That's literally it. He has no idea what he's doing, he has no idea where he's going, and he just literally expects the universe to open its door and lead him to where he needs to go. And the way that this happens is that after a level, Sora will go back to the ship, once again tell Donald and Goofy that he has no idea what he's doing, and then he just pulls out his Keyblade, points it at space, and a keyhole opens up to where he needs to go. And that's embarrassing. Like, that's actually embarrassing. Sora, the predestined hero of the entire universe, has to ask the universe, has to ask God, has to ask nobody in particular, just to open its door and show him where he needs to go like he's a freaking baby. And it's embarrassing. It's pathetic. It's awful. And Sora still sounds exactly like he did back in Kingdom Hearts. The attempt to give him a more mature voice actor completely failed because it was the Raiden effect. You didn't really change Raiden at his core, and so he still ends up being lame, even though you made him so ridiculously awesome, in theory, in Revengeance. Sora hasn't changed at all. He hasn't gone any smarter. He hasn't learned anything. And now because he hasn't learned anything, and because he's so completely stupid and inept as a person, who can't make his own decisions, because he has no idea how to make those decisions, because he's terrible as a hero and a person who needs to know how to save the universe. He figured out that the universe will just lead him to victory, and now he's just being asked to drag along for the ride. And it's actually amazing how, to the point, it is in Kingdom Hearts 3. It is such a low point, and it completely shows. Like, with no filter and with no attempt to make it creative or to hide it behind like narrative gibberish, or at least give a reason to why this is happening, that he can just open random keyholes and paths to where he needs to go. This has no filter. That's literally what happened. Like, I could take it as a joke that he doesn't understand what a cell phone is, because this is fantasy times and they probably don't have cell phones, and they don't have technology. So it is new to him. But no, I'm not giving him a fucking slide on just pointing his fucking destiny weapon at space and being able to open up the path, not knowing that any of that was going to happen. He doesn't make decisions, he doesn't make a plot turn. The universe just does it for him, and he just goes along for the ride. Because the only point of the bulk of the game is to just go to the levels and experience the movies. Which I'm fine with, in theory, but I just wish that they didn't do it through Sora's incompetence, because, like, he was really annoying before, because he just spoke like a moralizing dumbass who doesn't understand how villainy and evil works, like how people think, and he just expects everybody to fall all over themselves and be like, oh, I didn't realize I was being evil because this kid told me that friends are the only thing that matters in the end, and he just expects it all to work out in the end, and it does, because he's predestined to win. That's the only reason. Like, even at the final battle with Xehanort, who has been the evil puppet master behind the entire franchise up to that point, he beats him. Xehanort can bring all his power to bear on Sora, and he's still beaten at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. The guy who's been planning everything meticulously to the point that he was able to revive himself through time travel in order to succeed in his plans is still beaten by an idiot who hasn't figured out the power of waking at the end of the frickin' series. And this is why I would like to bring up the point that, to be honest, at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, Sora should have been written off. Sora should have been the one put into stasis, and Roxas should have taken his shoes. Or Riku should have. Because there's infinitely more mileage out of Riku or Roxas as a protagonist than Sora. Riku and Roxas have both been protagonists and have been way more interesting as people, and made their games so much more vibrant, so much more interesting, so much more freaking immersive to get into them, to, you know, want to know more, to want to know how they think, how the heck they're going to be able to beat the odds, you know, what happens if they fall to the powers that, you know, were provided them the strength in the first place, what happens if they fall to the dark side, what happens if they fail and they have to swing for the fences and go into survival mode, what happens? But instead we get Sora, who is not changed since Kingdom Hearts, who has no interesting backstory, who still wants to save Kairi all the time, and just wants to be the goody-good two-shoes, who is the most boring archetype of character because they're just good for goodness' sake and just expects everything to work out in the end, even though they have no idea how they're gonna do that. Sora is terrible, and I just wish that he would have been replaced by Riku or Roxas, or hell, even Axel at this point. I would have taken Axel, because while he's not as good as Roxas, he's 500 times better than Sora. I don't understand how Sora is the face of this series. It makes about as much sense as the Assassin's Creed framing device to me. Like, why does Square Enix put so much faith that Sora can sell the game, when Sora is the most boring part of every Kingdom Hearts game, aside from Kairi? My short opinion on Kairi is that Kairi should have fucked off before Kingdom Hearts 2. Like, after Kingdom Hearts, she shouldn't have been mentioned again, because she's a useless character. Kairi is the literal definition of a damsel in distress, who can't do anything, who can't save herself, who can't learn any new skills, to the point that, again, in Kingdom Hearts 3, this was shown off in amazing detail when she supposedly was going to be a Keyblade Master alongside Axel and be trained for the position, but then she completely flubs it in the combat she has been trained for, and is probably one of the biggest reasons why everybody died in their first battle with Terra Xehanort. Like, it was embarrassing. Like, I would have given her some credit if she turned out to be an actual combatant and could fight, but in the one time that she could have proved herself to do anything with a Keyblade, and they gave her a Keyblade for some reason, she completely failed up her ass, got everybody else killed, and they were only saved by a frickin' legitimate jumping the shark moment when they introduced the series Chirithy, and should have been immediately embarrassed that they decided that was a good idea. And now I'm learning that the possibility that the DLC story for Kingdom Hearts 3, when that eventually comes out, it's going to be the story of how Sora is going to save Kairi. And I could not tell you how beyond uninterested I am in that story, because it's stupid. Like, Kairi disappeared for no other reason than I think Square Enix needed to sell DLC for this game. It could have been so easy that Kairi just showed up at the ending cutscene when everyone's happy and able to live out their lives, because Sora finally, through predestined bullshit, was able to remove and resolve a lot of the tragic backstories of the three masters, Roxas, Axel, and Xion, and Riku. But now he's gone off to find Kairi because Square Enix needed DLC to sell. I can not think of a legitimate reason why that was left as a cliffhanger. Because they already have a cliffhanger to lead into the eventual Kingdom Hearts 4, and that was the revelation with Xigbar. And I thought it was really interesting that, you know, Xigbar was the guy that they chose for that, because Xigbar was the nobody of Braig, and Braig was introduced in Birth by Sleep, so it was a whole franchise character arc. So I'm interested to see that when that game eventually comes out. But Kairi has done nothing but be a burden to anyone she knows in this series. She has not gotten any powerful, she hasn't learned anything, she hasn't become capable or been able to do anything important throughout this entire franchise run, and her entire point for 8 games was just constantly being kidnapped by random people who are plot important in order to, you know, make Sora angry and make him predictably show up to their evil base so that they can eventually capture him, which they could do if he wasn't the Destiny Child. So yeah, Kairi should have just stayed home in Kingdom Hearts 2, and I know that was inherently impossible because Organization 13 can just appear wherever the hell they damn well please and just do whatever the hell they damn want, and Kairi's not stopping them because she's Kairi. But to be honest, she should have gone into hiding, she should have just stayed at home, she should not have tried to become a Keyblade Master, because legitimately, when they were going to the battle with the 13 Darknesses, Terra Xehanort was the only one to show up, and he managed to kill every single frickin' person in the Seven Lights team, because they had no idea what they were doing. They got frickin' ambushed by one person when they're supposed to be fighting 13 people, and got their asses completely handed them in one of the most pathetic showings I've ever seen. Because this was the entire reason that this game was happening, and the entire thing that they were training for. And they got beat by one person. I mean, god damn, that was, again, exactly as embarrassing as Sora has been throughout most of his dialogue was that exact fight. I mean, Jesus Christ. They should have won with the 13 Darknesses, other than it needed to happen because it's a video game, which is the only reason why the battle with the 13 Darknesses was so tilted against the 13 Darknesses. And again, they probably should have all died, because the thing that gave Sora the ability to come back to life was jumping the shark, instantaneous Deus Ex Machina bullshit. So yeah, I'm kinda hoping that that illustrates my opinion about Kingdom Hearts overall. It's been a crazy ride, it's had its ups and downs, and I really do appreciate it because the game just becomes so much more multi-dimensional and so much more immersive and really satisfying to experience. Something that's just so fun, and because you have the backstories and you know what journeys these characters have been on. Like, you really should go into Kingdom Hearts expecting to play everything. Otherwise, you're missing so much basic parts of these characters' lives that you really are missing out on so much that you could have been having way more fun with and just been on the edge of your seats the whole time. It's really tense seeing characters like Riku and Roxas and Axel have to go through the tragedy of their past lives and, you know, having those associations with the dark side. And while Sora is constantly screwing that up because Sora has nothing about him that is interesting or cool, and I really wish that he was gone, at the very least they have people in the background to pick up the slack, and it really does make the franchise so much better to go through it. And while, you know, tons of stuff is being thrown at the wall never to be picked up again, the game really does have a progression through all of its chapters, through all of its games, that is very coherent and very satisfying to connect the dots yourself and see them unfold as you're playing the games and, you know, seeing firsthand, you know, that thing from last game. How are they going to resolve that? And it just makes the game so much more narratively exciting. There's actually an emotional response from me to what happens next, especially, you know, again, Kingdom Hearts 3 and the reuniting of Axel, Roxas, and Xion. It's so much more satisfying when you know how much tribulation they had to go through in order to get to that point. And then on the other hand, I mean, the immediate reason why people keep picking up Kingdom Hearts and keep to know with the series is because of the hack and slash combat. It's, you know, a hack and slash that has really been improved and very intricate over time. I'm not going to say it's perfected because, you know, Square Enix does throw a lot of crap at the wall and sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes there's just too many mechanics that it either makes the player so powerful that it makes the combat kind of middling, which I guess is something to say with Square Enix's penchant for making over-the-top, Rareware style final battles, which, you know, several of them, a couple of them, can really end up on the worst battles of all time list, just because Square Enix pushes the boat out so much in favor of the final battle in order to, again, falsely make it cinematic and exciting, even though you're being beaten to death by someone who's just been given all the advantages. But other than that, I mean, it's very simple. It's a game where it's just fun to hit people with a stick, and you get to hit all these nostalgic characters with a stick. And it's just fun to experience what these characters are in their Disney movies, and these other characters that, again, are the antagonists of Kingdom Hearts, and get to experience their characters and what they did in the story, what they did in their movies, through gameplay. And it's just very interesting to see that, even though a lot of them are actually kind of bland, especially the Khan fight in Mulan in Kingdom Hearts 2, just as an example, where it could have been so much better, but it is still fun to beat the hell out of Genghis Khan in Mulan. I know he's not Genghis Khan, but I freaking forgot what his actual name was. He was the gray guy with the incredibly sadistic hawk. I mean, you know who I'm talking about. It's Mulan. I mean, it's one of the big Disney movies. Come on. They did definitely pick what movies to represent correctly, and especially in the first phase, for a lack of a better word, of Kingdom Hearts, when they constantly were reusing stuff. They were, you know, still reusing the nostalgic things. They were reusing Aladdin. They were reusing The Little Mermaid. They were reusing things like Cinderella and things like that all the time. Beauty and the Beast definitely made multiple appearances, and the good thing about that is that, yes, they were constantly reusing art assets and levels and level packs from, like, Kingdom Hearts 1 in order to constantly, I guess, be lazy. At the very least, they were picking different story bits, like different parts of the movie, and putting different spins on that movie in order to actually have something new to show even though, yes, this is the 4th time that we were going to Halloween Town. Like, come on. We need something a little bit different. And a little bit different definitely came after Kingdom Hearts 2 because they started making less games and not relying on the same old shit. Like, I'm definitely glad in Birth by Sleep that they basically had a bunch of new stories to pull from, especially things like Lilo and Stitch and Snow White. I'm kind of surprised they didn't use Snow White before then, but apparently they didn't. I mean, they were definitely still using Neverland. I mean, again, Peter Pan had shown up at least 3 games. And again, appreciation can wear off, especially in these spin-off ones where we're like, you know, this deep in and we're getting to Recoded, which by its plot synopsis is literally just going over the levels from Kingdom Hearts again, even though they were already featured in Calendar and they were already featured in Chain of Memories again. I think just because Square Enix wanted to make more Kingdom Hearts games, but they started like refining them down a little bit for Kingdom Hearts 2 and Dream Drop Distance, and definitely Kingdom Hearts 3 where they started, you know, what was it, like 8 years after Dream Drop Distance, which would have been the most modern console edition to come out. And, you know, they pulled from the modern Disney stuff, they pulled from Enchanted, which was really nice, and Big Hero 6, which was pretty cool. And they started getting later down the line to Pirates of the Caribbean, which will, again, Kingdom Hearts 3 went, like, really in-depth in comparison to Kingdom Hearts 2 with what Disney movies they went into and what plots they wanted to go over again in gameplay. And again, it was just a lot better because it was more open world than what Kingdom Hearts 2 was doing. I know open world at that point had been so tired. It worked a lot better since this was Kingdom Hearts, and Kingdom Hearts didn't really do that at all. And again, new movies, new levels, new things to do. I mean, it was just a grand old game. Toy Story was, again, a really fun time, a really creative use of the Toy Story IP with the challenges and the things you were doing. You know, toy stores and all that. Square Enix making an in-universe video game for Rex to drool all over was actually pretty cool, even though when you actually got into the video game part, it was actually pretty lame, which, you know, depending on the year, could be used as a criticism against Square Enix itself. So, yeah, I mean, Kingdom Hearts might be incredibly convoluted and totally impenetrable for new people to get into. I mean, you really need to play all the games to really get the most out of the series. You can't jump into the new Kingdom Hearts game without going over every other thing that happened in order to get the full context. Square Enix is not going to be giving you that context in the game that you are currently playing. You need to get in depth and go through these characters' backstories to know the tribulations that they went to and what depths of darkness they had to pull themselves out of in order to finally get to a good place in their lives and get their friends back together. The tragedies of the groups is something that is so powerful and something that is so good to see, so like moving. Emotional investment is an actual possibility in Kingdom Hearts, which again, all these things I thought back in the day when I first got into Kingdom Hearts, I thought was impossible because specifically I didn't know anything about Roxas. I just knew him from the intro of Kingdom Hearts 2, and by then he already stole my heart away, and then I played Calendar, and I mean, there was a point where it wasn't as bad as the ending of Super Paper Mario, but I mean, I could have been. I could have shed a tear, maybe one or two, at the ending of Calendar. And again, the moment when Xion showed up and everything was finally right with the world with those three, and it was just good. It was great. It was amazing to finally get to see everything come full circle and just be good again, with none of the dark side, with none of the emotional manipulation and things like that. Nobody was betrayed. The organization was totally falling apart, and, you know, they finally got to enjoy a good moment in their lives and, you know, get that final credit scene. It's just something that you aren't going to understand or really appreciate unless you play all the games. And I know it's hard to play all the games. It was hard to, you know, record all of them and actually enjoy myself. But, you know, that's kind of the thing of reviewing games like months down the line after you play them. Yes, they were annoying at points, but the main purpose of games like Calendar and games like Chain of Memories is to move the plot forward and introduce these characters that have these arcs to move an arc forward. Things like Riku finally returning to normal in Kingdom Hearts 2, Sora fighting Roxas in that emotional battle in Kingdom Hearts 2, and, what it meant for, him to be beaten and him to be, resorbed into Sora's consciousness. And then the entire battle with the 13 Darknesses set piece that, really freed everybody from their tragedies and reunited. I didn't speak a lot about the Three Masters plot, and I kind of realized that because Three Masters in Birth by Sleep were actually kind of lame, to be honest. Aqua, I felt, was more of a robot than a person who, even in Birth by Sleep, just didn't really have an emotional reaction to anything, and, she was the weak one. She was the one that specialized in magic, and you can't really specialize in magic in a Kingdom Hearts game because, kind of by definition, they inherently weaken your ability to attack people with a stick, and you need the ability to hit people with a stick. If you don't have that ability, magic isn't going to help. Magic is a supplemental attack power, it's not the main thing that you draw from. And then Ventus he wasn't as bad as Sora, but he was definitely pulling from what Sora used to do. He was incredibly naive, he was making stupid decisions, but at the very least he was making his own decisions, even though they were very, very terrible decisions that he really should have had somebody handhold him on and just tell him no, because a lot of this shit could have been avoided, because he was the guy with the destiny to unlock the Chi Blade, and, everybody should have handled that better because you didn't, and that allowed Xehanort to get its hooks into him. The one person who broke the mold was Terra, because Terra, again, was basically Riku, basically Anakin Skywalker again. He was seduced by the dark side, and also because he was a massive idiot and was not thinking, and just listened to everybody around him and didn't question anything. So he was making just incompetent moves that Xehanort was able to easily fucking manipulate into getting a vessel so that he could live on to fulfill his plans and all that jazz. But Terra was the strongest character. He had the most interesting arc because, again, he was being seduced by the dark side. He had flaws by drawing from the power of darkness. And again, I don't think I should have to say something so obvious as Square Enix, but flaws make an interesting character in an inherent way because they're not the best at everything, because they could relapse, because they have to overcome the darkness in themselves. They might draw power from it and ultimately screw themselves because they're getting seduced again, and then they end up becoming completely mind-controlled and just start attacking their friends. And that's why Terra was the most interesting, even though he was the one who ultimately lost the most. Aqua probably could have, developed the strength in order to break out of the Land of Darkness. I don't know why the hell she was staying there for 10 years, but apparently she didn't have a connection like Riku and Mickey to get out of the Land of Darkness, even though she was there for 10 years. She probably could have done some research, done some learning, found a door, done something. To be honest, I think she probably just sat there for a decade drowning in just whatever darkness was lying around and constantly fighting demon towers and not accomplishing anything, which was, again, really annoying, especially when she became anti-Aqua, which was just one of those moments where I was like, Square Enix, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing to Aqua that this is now a thing that I have to deal with? I tell you, Kingdom Hearts has been such a trip. And that's mostly why I wanted to make the video. I've been talking to a microphone for an hour about it, because overall it's such a whack-ass, completely sensible series with attachable characters. Someone you can actually say, I want to put my emotional investment in you because you have done so many good things. You have, beaten your boss, taken on the power, and completely failed, and just had to be teleported to a completely other dimension as a result, as a punishment, because you weren't able to do it, but I know you're going to be able to do it, and I want to see it happen. And it's that sort of stuff, like, again, flaws. Flaws for characters. Characters have flaws. Characters are evil. Characters aren't just black and white. Characters consider the fucking implications of their actions and actually go somewhere and do things. And it's a series that is unlike any other, just for how detailed and how mad and crazy shit gets behind the scenes. Like, the people carrying this fucking series have so much more talent at maintaining their canon than anyone on the canon maintenance team of Ubisoft could ever dream of having, just because they are so freaking nuts and able to just do whatever the hell they want, whenever the hell they want. I mean, they can do whatever. They can write, they have their own destinies in their hands. They can mold and shift and do whatever to the inherent characters, the inherent factions of this series to create anything they really want with Sora and whatever evil that he has to go up against. And again, the main reason that people stick around is that it has that reputation for being nonsense, because you have to have the investment in every game in order to actually fully understand the context of what's going on with these characters and their decision to do things, and the places that they end up going and the decisions they end up making, and just good old-fashioned, tons of frills, but simple to the core hack and slash combat. That's all Kingdom Hearts really needed to succeed, but that whack-ass storyline they've been building over the last 15 years has just been the thing that makes the release of any Kingdom Hearts game, except if it's on mobile or Facebook, kind of a miniature event in the news. And I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Sora's antics from here on out. So, as you can tell by, again, this unscripted video has been going on for an hour, and I actually haven't been umming and erring so much, so I've just have been tons to talk about. It's kind of the ultimate reason why I wanted to do this video. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to process this for so long, and why I wanted to pull this out. Unfortunately, I ended up talking so long that I actually had to delay the video to tomorrow, so I am sorry about that. I am going to be going on break after this because I'm, moving house this weekend, so unfortunately, we're going to be starting Birth by Sleep a little late, probably like 5 days out when I actually have access to the internet again. I don't know how bad my ISP is going to be, but anyway, so look forward to that. I hope you that enjoyed at least bits or parts of this video, if you didn't sit through the entire 1 hour of my rambling about nonsense that, if you haven't played all the Kingdom Hearts games, you don't give a shit about. But I think that, I did at least gloss over the ultimate reasons why Kingdom Hearts as a series has to be looked at as both individual games and as a series in order to fully understand why there was such an appreciation for it, and why, even though Kingdom Hearts is really weird and its own thing on a Nintendo sort of level, it should really be taken seriously, because the people behind Kingdom Hearts do know what they're doing, even if they keep using Sora, who is terrible, but they do know how to make an interesting story. So yeah, keep an eye on Kingdom Hearts. Hey, keep an eye on the franchise series we're going to be doing pretty soon, especially if you like those nostalgic Disney villains being hit with a stick. And I do hope to be seeing you around. I will finish up this video here with a final victory for gamers, because, I mean, if you were here for an hour, you definitely deserve the hell out of a victory for gamers, because you, sir, you are dedicated, as I unfortunately am, to the goings-on of Sora's really stupid antics. But hey, at least he's got Riku, so everything's right in the world there. We got a dark and brooding character who actually has a reason to be dark and brooding sometimes. So that's all good. Anyway, again, I do want to thank you for sticking around here and enjoying my thoughts on what Kingdom Hearts actually does right. They do a lot wrong too, but hey, what they do right ends up overshadowing that, so it's all right in the world. I hope we eventually do get Kingdom Hearts 4 in the next 15 years, whenever the hell Square Enix wants to sit down and actually get that done and figure out what the hell they're going to do with Xigbar, who's going to be the new villain, or one of, I don't know. But yeah, stay tuned and check out what's going to happen next, because this is Kingdom Hearts, and it could literally be anything.